We collect the final Halloween Horror Nights creative team member as we talk to Patrick Braillard about his time at Universal Orlando. You are listening to episode 420 of the Unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. It is Lee. I am with Tracy.
Hello everyone.
And Chris is back.
Hey, I'm glad to be back.
And Darren is still being wrangled by work, but we would like to welcome the final Pokemon, Mr. Patrick Braillard. Hey Patrick.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Good.
We've already sat and recorded for 50 minutes with Patrick for a
Yeah.
Producers Club special that producers will come out just after this, and it is well worth the
Oh, it's
wait.
amazing.
It was a blast.
In fact, just join the Producers Club to hear it. Trust me.
I'm bummed. I wasn't on that one, but I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah. So much fun.
But yeah, I wish it was under better circumstances, Patrick, that we've managed to get you on, but, you know, COVID.
Yeah, the great equalizer.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm really happy that we finally have a chance to talk, and I know that, you know, I did bring it up that I was like that mythical Pokemon that hadn't been gathered yet. But you got to catch them all, and now you have me.
Absolutely.
So I'm at your
too.
all right. But I'm kind of at your mercy as far as where you want to take the conversation. I'm happy to talk about anything and everything. I mean, not where the bodies are buried or
Yeah,
anything
exactly.
like that. Nothing that gets me in trouble legally.
Oh,
Well, I think we need to get to get to know you. And look, we're going to cover Horror Night. We know that. We're keeping that separate. That's going for the second half of the show. So
Sounds good.
so Patrick, you were part of the team at Universal Orlando for a long time, but we are interested on how you got there. So, like, what inspired you to get into the themed entertainment industry, and how did that lead you to getting your first job at Universal Orlando?
Oh wow. So I'm originally from just outside of Seattle, Washington. Unfortunately, it's a part of the country that's on fire right now.
oh dear.
Yeah, there's wildfires up and down the West Coast, so
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. Fortunately, everybody's safe, and that's
Good.
you know,
Good.
that's the most important thing.
Good.
But yeah, so being raised there and going to school there and getting my theater degree, my undergraduate degree, and then meeting my wife at my undergraduate university, and we had been acting and directing together and separately in the Seattle area for about maybe 5 years. Before I got a phone call from her one day, and she said, "Hi, I just got a marketing and acting intern position offered to me for the Orlando Shakespeare Theater."
Okay.
And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, that's kind of crazy, but all right. When do we leave?" And she was like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, we have an apartment, we have a cat, but we don't have like anything else. So, yeah, let's go. Let's go to Orlando. Let's see what Orlando has to offer." And so we moved down here, and she started work at Shakes a year after we got married. In fact, on our 1-year wedding anniversary. And I got a job down at Disney, and I was down at Disney doing attractions for about a year and a half. And Jumbo, everybody, welcome to Kilimanjaro Safaris.
Ooh.
And
Hey, you're talking
Yeah.
dirty language on this podcast right there, Patrick. We don't mention the other resort.
oh, the one down the street.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't talk
All right.
about it.
I'll try to keep it clean.
He doesn't. I like Kilimanjaro.
Well, the actually, you know, what's funny about the question that Chris asked me is that I had never, outside of one trip when I was 8 years old, experienced a major theme park.
Wow.
When I was 8, we spent 2 weeks in Southern California, touring around all of the major theme parks. So everything from San Diego north all the way up into Six Flags territory. And so we were all up and down California's coast. And I hadn't experienced anything like that again until I was, I don't know, 26, 27. Wow. And so I walked into one of the parks here in Orlando. I won't say what it is. And apparently I can't. So I'm in a park, and I'm on a ride, and it's a dark ride, and I'm on it, and this character flies overhead, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I look back behind me and I see this character like catch and kind of shake a little bit and like and like start to reset. I can actually look behind the scenery and see this character starting to reset to make another appearance for the car behind me. And it was the first time that I ever, as an audience member, felt like, oh man, that's a ripoff. like I know, like that was that first time where my first understanding, I guess, in a different parlance, is my first understanding those places are for children.
Yeah.
Or at least that attraction was made for a kid. Because the kid is going to be looking forward, and it's all about the control of and the manipulation of their viewpoint, and what kind of an idiot turns around and looks over their shoulder to try to see where the thing resets at that time. And it immediately fascinated me to no end, having no experience in theme parks, to say, oh, there's somebody's job it is to develop, design, create, and tell the story of that particular character doing that. And their initial intention was not to have anybody see that.
Yeah.
So there has to be a way into the industry in which our job is to design narratives or design storytelling that is such that you can account for that, as well as tell a decent story or have the attraction mean something to the guests that are going through it. So immediately I was like, okay, I'm in. I mean, yes, I've been working down at Kilimanjaro for 6 months at this point, but I'm fully vested. It doesn't matter what park I land in. I want to create. I want to be on that part of the side of the table that shows the scope, the grandeur, and the potential of some place like this that can storytell for the guests in that manner.
Wow.
And
cool.
And Universal definitely, for the last several years that I've been there, that was always something that I tried to instill, and also would take inspiration from if ever things got very stressful or I got tired or felt a little bit down or non-inspired by the work that I might have been doing at the time, which is few and far between. But that was the potential. It was the potential of the place, and I think that the studios in IOA in particular, because we are on a Universal podcast,
of course.
I think the studios and also IOA have such a magnificent amount of potential for storytelling for the guests.
Yeah.
And I think that in particular, and I know that we're going to get there, Lee, but in particular, Horror Nights has an unlimited amount of scope that you can apply to it that doesn't even require huge budgets, although they do have large budgets.
Yeah.
You can change how people feel about an environment very quickly. And I think that is something that is incredibly important in the theme entertainment industry. And I don't think it's lacking. I think there's a lot of people who understand that and through collaboration, but I think that it's something that was a touchstone for me, because I went on a ride and I looked behind me when I probably shouldn't. and caught a ride sleeping.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've spoken to many, many people in the themed entertainment industry since starting the podcast, even upon doing an actual segment for the show about, and I want to sit down with you at some point, Patrick. I know we've talked about it, called The Rides That Made Me, and it's the 3 attractions that have had the biggest influence on you as a person and your career. And it's weird that most people have theme parks ingrained in them from such a young age, and the fact that you came into it so late is really interesting.
Yeah, I think that I wasn't in a really great place when I was 8 and went down and traveled. And I've told this story to a number of different casts that I've had the fortune of working with throughout the years. Is that when I went down there and experienced those parks, it was such an escape from where I had been that it made me feel so important, and being able to escape, I got the opportunity to really enjoy myself in a way that I hadn't before. That sense of exploring, that sense of wonder, I could really tap into because I was removed from my natural environment. And I said, as I've told the casts, there's a great opportunity for every performer or every entertainment entity in the themed entertainment industry to recognize that there are children and adults that are going through the parks that have saved up for 10 to 15 years,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and this is their one chance to come.
Yeah.
So if you don't do your absolute best to try and ingrain yourself in their memory or create memories for them that they'll talk about, because this is the only time they're going to get the opportunity to experience it,
Mhm.
then we're shorting them on their experience.
Yeah.
It's
I agree.
it's imperative. It's
Yeah.
imperative that you live up to that responsibility.
Mhm.
And it's a huge, to talk to casts, they're like, I just thought we were singing and dancing and it kept on changing.
Yeah.
And it's not that. It definitely isn't. There's a mode and a reason that themed entertainment is as visceral and as important to the culture as it is.
Yeah.
Well, I think you also hit it. I mean, just to comment on that the escapism, that's the word that gets me the most.
Yeah.
Is that escapism out of reality. Like the first time you go to these parks, you're blown away. And then after that, you kind of want to relive that escapism to get out of the, real world or whatever issues you got going on. It just takes you to a place, like you said. I think that hits it on the mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is such a funny thing too, because they talk about immersion.
Yeah.
And it's not really immersion because the people will go there themselves. Like to Chris's point, it's escapism.
Yeah.
You just have to feed them enough relevant touchstones for them to create the story in their own head.
Yeah.
The work is really done by the guest. It's not done by the people who are putting together everything.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I suppose. I don't know.
Well, kind of leading on from that and how you've created experiences and things. Now, we're all huge fans of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter here at the UUOP. People may have noticed. Now, Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley really brought Universal Orlando out of Disney's shadow. And you amazing person, created the Hogwarts Conductor Experience and the Wizarding Academy of Dramatic Arts Performances, as well as others, which we thank you for. The experience of getting to create new and original experiences for the Wizarding World must have been a fantastic part of your time at Universal Orlando.
Yeah. The fact that Mike Aiello, who I owe so much to, I think that so many people in this industry do, brought me on. I just become a permanent member of the team and a full-time member of the team, and he brought me into a room and he said, okay, we've got this conductor of the Hogwarts Express character that we're trying to figure out, and what do you got as far as training, and how do you think we could go about developing it? And we developed a training for 5 of the original conductors, and it took 5.5 weeks. And so they learned everything they possibly could of the canon within that time period.
Wow.
And then we got news that they were going to add 15 more, and we had 5 days to train them. And so we condensed down the training from that 5-week period. Fortunately, because of that 5-week period, we all, both myself and the other 5 conductors, we all had an idea of what we could get rid of, what was really necessary. And a lot of that time was actually taken in trying to get the approval process finished.
Yeah.
But once the approval process through WB and the Blair partnership was taken care of and out of the way, a lot of it came down to, okay, what are the core facets of this character and what's necessary? And what a special time too, because Hogsmeade in and of itself changed the entire game as far as the theme park industry, not just in Orlando, but worldwide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what a lucky thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I think when we did the producer club last week, Patrick, you kind of said it's something that outside of J.K. Rowling, there's only you and a handful of people have got to play in that sandbox.
Yeah,
and that's
amazing.
That's something that's so humbling. You know, I can say it off the cuff and be like, yeah, that blah blah blah. But then to hear somebody else say it, I'm like, oh damn, you're right. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It is something that I think that when you're mid process and you're just like, I just got to nail this dialogue down, or you're mid process and I'm like, we just got to figure out a way for Verge to blow up the box, or we've got to figure out a way to get that character downstage. You kind of lose, the view of what it means, I think, on a global level. And then on opening day, you see thousands upon tens of thousands of people all waiting to get in and experience it. And you have this small little tiny touchstone portion of the mythos that you've had the great fortune of working on. And you see the reaction of these people's faces when they see your work, and it's not only validating, but it's a humbling experience that only happens once in your career if you're lucky.
Yes. And those Hogwarts Express conductors certainly got put to the test when Hagrid opened.
Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah, I know that there was a website that was like test the conductor or break the conductor or something like that. It was because they understood, because it was first promoted as a living signpost of the land. And so you had to get him on every single piece of verbiage and every single thing he could possibly learn about the wizarding world, and he had to know everything.
Wow. Yeah, well, yeah. Potter nerds, yeah.
Yeah.
Hardcore. Yeah, pretty hardcore.
And that's the thing, is that bless him for it, because that's the thing that, kind of shows you what kind of longevity a production like that can have.
Yes.
You see a project last 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. That's because the people care so much about the characters, and this is one sliver of a window to try to see into their world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely.
And so speaking of characters, while we're on that, right, you also brought one of the resort's most popular character interactions to life, and that is meeting Blue at the Raptor Encounter in Jurassic Park. Now, it has become such a popular experience. I can only imagine you had a blast kind of putting that together, because I mean, it's very unique.
Yeah. We were that is something. Blue was something that took a long time to get there.
Really?
Because the first initial treatments that were sent to try and figure out like what we could do with that was really a branching off of the original encounter, which was the Triceratops encounter that was there.
Yeah, which I'm so gutted we never got to see it.
Yeah, I only saw it once. We opened it up for a very released, like 3-day period sometime in like 2014.
Yes.
It was a limited edition, and I had a chance to go down there and see it, mainly because, and I was so excited about it because we were already in development for Raptor Encounter at the time. And I appreciate what you said, Chris, because dinosaurs by themselves are just inherently cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The idea that there is a monster that used to live here that we now get to see is just really neat. Yeah, sure, it could rip your face off, but
you know,
you take the good with the bad.
Exactly.
But Raptor Encounter was definitely a passion project of ours that we tried to put up as cost effectively as possible, because when we did it the very first time, they were like, sure, you can have that section of Raptor or Triceratops Encounter, and sure, you can have this little tiny piece of land. You don't have any money. Good luck.
Okay.
And we went, we need a little bit of money. Yeah, we need a little bit of money for cloning. And so we got a little bit of cloning funding. And then working with Michael Curry and his design team on developing that creature was something crazy. I think the first time that we pitched that idea was like 2010.
Really?
And then in 2013, I went to USJ and helped them with Horror Nights in the fall of 13, and they had a walk around dinosaur. They had 2 actually at that point. I think they had a small brachiosaur as well that would walk through the land. It was a 2-person puppet.
Okay.
And I lost my mind. I was walking through following this thing, and all of a sudden, because the Japanese, they have attendants, but they don't it's the personal responsibility of the individual to watch out for themselves when they're in the park. And so this brachiosaur turned and its tail smacked me in the face.
Ow.
And I was, it hurt. But at the same time, I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
We have to get this in Orlando.
Yeah.
So I came back on fire, just be like, okay, we need dinosaurs in the dinosaur land. This is what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody listened. Like I got a couple people to listen to me eventually. And so, which was really nice. And so, yeah, when Blue premiered in 2015, it lined up perfectly with Jurassic World coming out. And then now she's in this beautiful Jurassic World enclosure. And she's in a permanent location, and now we've got baby raptors there too.
And that's the thing. I think you see how popular it is, that it's moved around because of because of the churro stand that's getting built in the middle of Jurassic Park at the moment, that they've
the unannounced churro stand.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's so popular that they've moved it and then moved it again because it has become such a part. And I think as a company as well, like how many videos on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook groups do you see of people's interactions with the Raptor Encounter? It's the perfect social media interaction. It's brilliant.
It wouldn't be a trip without it.
Yeah, I following its release in the summer of 15, when we first did it, I went on vacation to Seattle to see my mom, and I got off the plane back here in Orlando with my family, and we're waiting at the baggage turnstile, and I look up and there's Blue in a video piece on the wall at MCO, and I was like,
awesome.
Oh my god, that was I had done Potter by that point. I had done Hogsmeade. I had done Diagon Alley.
Yeah.
Like those were big media pieces. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, seeing Blue's picture at the baggage carousel in the airport, I was like, "Wow, that's a touchstone!" Like, wow, they care, which was really nice. It was really sweet.
It's cool as well because it's kind of a little bit of Horror Nights scared during the day.
Oh yeah,
because it scares the crap out of people.
Yeah,
I love how it does that. People know it's what it is, and they still get terrified. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah. The very first time that we ever wanted to do it, I asked if we could put like breath in the nose and and they're like, yeah, you can do that, but you won't have a puppet in like 2 days. I was like, oh, okay, wear and tear, physical problems.
Yeah,
okay,
that's a shame.
Yeah.
Could they not have done a Guy Diamond like farting effect kind of thing out of the nose?
I take no responsibility for Guy Diamond farting. However, that being said, that is one of my favorite things in the park.
Everyone was like, really? A farting troll? Okay.
Oh, I took no shame at all when I knew that Guy Diamond was going to premiere for the very first time for the general public, of bringing my family and being one of the very first families in line waiting for Guy Diamond's first set. And here comes like 30 costuming managers and area entertainment managers all out, and they all saw me and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm here to see Guy Diamond. I want to see the Glart."
The Glart.
I have not heard it called that before.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's the Glart.
They should start bottling that and selling in the store. That's all I'm saying.
Bottled farts?
Glass.
Good Lord. Now we want to give Halloween Horror Nights its own breathing space in the show because we love it so much. And yeah, Lee wants to wallow in it a lot. I admit it, a lot.
I'm feeling a little melancholy about Horror Nights right now, to be honest with you.
I know.
Now you have had your hands on so much at Universal Orlando, from all the stories you hear, which I love, to the revamp of the horror makeup show. I also love that. Mardi Gras, hang on. That. Grinchmas. Hopefully I'll find out next year, but I'm sure I'm going to love that because that's my second husband, and so much more. You may be gone, Patrick, but your legacy will definitely live on. Yes,
his legacy.
You may no longer be working there, but your legacy will live on, without a doubt. And you must be very proud of what you created. So has it been as much fun as us theme park nerds hope it has been, getting to play it in the theme park world?
Oh, first of all, it's very flattering that, when you list all the accolades, it kind of makes you go, oh, wow. Because again, you don't see it when you're in it.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that.
But I mean, yeah, my time with Universal has passed, but at the same time, yeah, it is as much fun as it looks. It's a job. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of sleepless nights, and you're constantly solving problems in your head. You don't get to punch out at night because you're always on the clock. Mm-hmm. You're always trying to solve for whatever potential problems are coming down the line. Not even the ones that are in front of you, because those should have been solved months ago, but the ones that are coming up. But for the sake of answering this question, yes, it is. And the thing that makes it that way are the people that you have the opportunity to work with.
Yes.
I have been blessed during my time that I spent with Universal to work with, without a doubt, some of the best people on the planet. And I don't mean just like in themed entertainment. I mean some of the best human beings that there are.
That's nice.
There have been so many different connections that I have made with people, small connections that might have happened in an overnight rehearsal or just walking down the hallway and seeing them and we give each other a high five or inside jokes that take on a life of their own 6 months later in a meeting from when they started. There are so many good, decent, strong-willed, talented, wonderful people who really do sink their teeth into what it is to create on a grand scale while creatively problem solving all of the potential challenges that arise there, that I could not be I could not consider myself more lucky than I was for my time to be with them. And when that happens, and you have that lightning in a bottle kind of moment where you're surrounded by all of these magnificent people, you can't help but enjoy the work that you do and look forward to a time in which you may collaborate with them again.
Yeah. I mean, we can attest to some of that, having spoken to a number of the creative team on the show. Yeah, they're all amazing. I mean, we've talked about Blake. Blake has become a friend at this point.
Yep, he's not escaping.
You know, every time we go out, we bump into Mike, and Mike will take time to talk to us. They are just the absolute salt of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they really are. There's everybody. Laura,
yeah,
Jason.
Laura's lovely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Billy, Charles, Nate, Kelly. I mean, and that's just creative development in a nutshell. Like just the small creative development team. There's so many people that I had the great fortune to cross paths with that I'm very, very lucky. And the responsibility of creating the entertainment that we have doesn't fall deaf on those ears. Everybody who is involved with that work understands the responsibilities that they have, but also they also understand that it's all about that escapism that Chris was talking about earlier. It's all about making sure that those guests enjoy themselves to their fullest extent.
Yeah.
So yes, Tracy, it's fun.
Good.
This is not going to be anywhere near long enough. Patrick, we're going to have you on again because there is so much to delve in. I feel like we've hardly talked about anything when we're like halfway through. Right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back to talk Halloween Horror Nights.
Have you taken a stroll down Diagon Alley and visited Gringotts Bank? Taken a ride through New York with Jimmy Fallon? Visited the Truffalo Trees in Seuss Landing or hung out with a real-life Transformer? No? Then what are you waiting for? At Universal Orlando Resort, there truly is an option for everyone. Or if you're leaning a little more towards pixie dust rather than wands and potions, Disney destinations around the globe await your arrival. No matter the adventure, our sponsors have you covered. Be sure to let the experts at Mouse & Muggle Travel Company take care of all your travel needs, earning the distinction of being an earmarked agency specializing in Disney destinations, as well as becoming one of the first to be named a You Preferred agency with Universal Parks and Resorts Vacations. Mouse & Muggle Travel Company will ensure you receive top-rated customer service. Just visit mouseandmuggle.com to fill out a no-obligation quote request, or send your request to info@mouseandmuggle.com. Their team can take care of you no matter where in the world you want to go. With a flick of their wand and a little bit of pixie dust, the process will be so seamless, some might even say it's simply magical.
Welcome back, everyone. Of course, Patrick, we are huge Halloween Horror Nights fans, and we are a lot sad. I was going to say a little bit sad. We are very, very sad that it is not going ahead this year, because this would have been the first time Tracy and I would have got to experience 2 Horror Nights in a row, with coming out last year and coming out this year. So we want to dedicate the rest of the show to Halloween Horror Nights. Not that there's that much longer, but anyway. Patrick, you have worked as part of the Halloween Horror Nights team since 2007. I'm going to list all the stuff here. This is incredible. You've worked on the street teams back in 2007, then from 2008 up to this year. As we said, RIP HHN20. I will call it HHN20 and not 30. 2020, sorry.
2020,
yes. Working on the house concept and as part of the direction team. You've even stepped in to direct and co-write Bill and Ted for 2 years. You wrote The Carnage Returns in 2015 and Academy of Villains for 2 years. Your hands are all over that event. And this is why you have always been that person that has escaped us, because every time it came around to interview time, it's like, I wonder if we'll get Patrick this year. You get Patrick. No, Blake. Have Blake. There's Blake.
We love Blake.
Blake is not a concession. he's not a consolation prize.
No, I love having
we
Blake
adore
on.
it.
So first of all, how did you end up getting on the Horror Nights team?
I think it's because I insulted Michael Roddy.
Okay.
There was a time because I started my career at Universal as a host of Fear Factor Live. I was part of the opening day team for that attraction.
Wow. And
was the contracted host for about 2.5 years before I got the gig at Horror Nights in show direction. So I was, because Bill and Ted takes place in that venue, or took place in that venue, we had to be removed and sent to different parts of the park. So I was with my producer. We were tasked with being Shrek villagers. And we were over in 54, right near Donkey and Shrek. And I was walking around in crushed velour and a page boy wig and a megaphone and a tunic and a hat. And I was the town crier.
Okay.
And instead of actually going, hear ye, I cried all day long. I was the town crier. And so I had a megaphone and I got to cry on megaphone the entire time. and it was a lot of fun. But I had become completely in love with Horror Nights from the time that we arrived here in Orlando. I'd gone 2 or 3 years and just absolutely loved it and didn't know how to get in. Didn't know how to get into the event. Didn't know how to approach it. I just had apparently blinders on as far as the production team was concerned, or the fact that they used performance captains and show directors. I just didn't even think about it. But with my amount of experience that I had theatrically, when I did find out that there were going to be interviews for it, I immediately signed up for it. And I'm now wearing my velvet and I'm out in the streets and I see Michael Roddy walking down the street with a bunch of people who looked very important. And I took it upon myself to, as the town crier, lay into him about where he's going and why he's in such a big hurry.
Oh, no.
and I don't even know if Roddy remembers this, but I lit into him pretty hard. And I tried to impress upon him how important he must be and really kind of fed that monster. Right? Like really laid it on thick as well as I could as a character. So that when it came time for the interviews, he looked at me across the table and he's like, "Oh, I remember you."
Good tactic.
And immediately I was like, yes, that's all I wanted. I just wanted him to set me apart from, something to distinct me, make me distinct.
Yeah.
And so then we talked about, our shared love of horror, our shared love of film. And he really kind of, he brought me in as we'll see how this goes. That Princess Bride thing, sleep tight, Wesley, most likely kill you in the morning. And so in 07, I became a performance captain for the streets with Laura and under Laura. And we were able to put together a really great street program. And I was just there to say, yes, whatever you guys need, I'll be there for you. And then in 08, Roddy said, sleep tight, Patrick, most likely kill you in the morning. But if you want to, let's do seasonal show direction for the houses.
Wow.
And that's where I am. I could not, I still can't articulate to this day what it was like that first time to take on the concepts that had been built up and created by Roddy and Aiello that year, because that was the first time they split.
Okay.
So it was 4-4. And I still remember the day that I walked into T65 into the conference room. I'll never forget the look on his face. It was like 300 pounds of weight went off his shoulders. Because Mike was prepping Bill and Ted. Aiello was prepping Bill and Ted. And I got in there for that first day as a show director, and he has the Bible. It's this huge 3-ring binder that has all the paper treatments in it that I know had been, because now with my experience, know that they've been killing themselves for months to put together. Mm-hmm. And he's sitting there and he looks at me and he goes, "Here you go." And he slides it across the table. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Everything in that book." I went, "Okay." And he's like, "I got to go to a meeting."
Baptism of fire.
And I'm joking around. Mike was very supportive, and he always has been.
Yes.
But at the same time, that has to be that way.
Yeah.
Because you have to, as the show director, take it upon yourself to not necessarily make it your own, especially when you have no skin in the game as far as concept is concerned. But when you are given it, Mike needed to break away from it so that I was the person that everybody came to answer the questions. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated that so much. And I didn't know anybody on the team. Like my onboarding was very, very fast and furious. It really was. It was very like, okay, who are you? What do you do? What's the difference between scenic and decor? Okay. Okay, over here. And I would call people out of meetings and they'd be like, that's me. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I would turn my head and like, oh, you. You're video. Okay. But that first year was crazy. And then apparently I did a passable job because following opening of 08, Roddy got in touch with me and said, we'd like to bring you back for 09. And I fell out of my chair. I was just like, this is amazing. And then he said, yeah, so concept will start, I think at that point, concept was starting mid-November. He's like, so you'll be back with us. You'll go back to Fear Factor for about a month. And then you'll be back with us mid-November, late November for concept. And I was like, concept? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, wow, I get to be in the room. Oh boy. And that's a feeling that never left. That kind of feeling of oh my God, this is so crazy that I'm in this room and I get to talk about horror movies and what excites me about the genre and what excites me about how best to bring them about in real life for the guests. And that's something that everybody who gets into that room feels, I think. If they don't, they shouldn't be there.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, you kind of hit on it a little bit, but we always imagine a brainstorming session to be, and no disrespect, like a bunch of kids in their mom's basement, way past their bedtime, talking about all the things they shouldn't be talking about, just completely geeking out about horror movies and stuff. Does that sound accurate? Am I hitting it? How are we looking on that?
That's a portion of it. I mean, it is. The thing that we always, not necessarily fought against, but we always were very aware of, was that there's a perception that there is just that, right? That we're just sitting in there watching movies, watching TV, because our job being on the creative side of it is almost ethereal. Until a passable treatment and design come out of that room, what the hell are you guys doing in that room? But when you look at it, if you spend any time in there, you see that it's very methodical about how we approach the process. I think I'm still barred from talking about the ins and outs of the process. And I wouldn't want to divulge that information even if I wasn't. I don't think. I think that it's a sacred kind of a thing. But at the same time, there's a lot of arguing.
I bet.
And it's good arguing. It's not arguing. It's not, nobody takes anything personal in that room. In fact, if you don't have a thick skin towards people telling you very strongly and with conviction their exact thoughts about your idea, you should not be there.
Right.
Because you're very honest in that room, and you're very open about people's opinions. That being said, you're also so, or at least my experience has been, that people were so open to your ideas and wanted, if not the whole entire idea, then at least a portion of that idea to be such a success. Mm-hmm. And I think that so many times things that have occurred in the history of Horror Nights and have become legend or become part of the vernacular, what people use, like SIF,
yes,
or things like that comes from that room where it just became easier for us to use a shorthand on material while writing it down in treatment form, and then that vocabulary just found its way out of the room.
And it found out that was a word last year from doing the Unmasking the Horror, no, SIF, from doing the Unmasking the Horror tour last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you find those little tidbits of information, and those, that kind of shorthand, just to use SIF as the touchstone, right? That kind of shorthand is what exists all of the time in that room.
Wow.
You have disagreements, you have loving arguments and disagreements with the people that are in that room, but it always comes from a place of how are we going to make the best event possible?
Uh-huh.
And yes, a lot of it, Chris, has to do with like, it's just really freaking cool to talk about certain stuff.
Oh man.
It's just really cool when you get to spend a day dissecting, I don't know, pick an IP from the last 10 years.
American Werewolf in London.
American Werewolf in London. You get the fact you get to talk about, okay, well, we're definitely going to put Blue Moon in the finale because that's the way it is in the film. Or you're gonna talk about the fact that we are going to go into the Slaughtered Lamb because, and the reason we're going into the Slaughtered Lamb is because we want to tell the story in a chronological function. Yes. Or if there's a movie like The Exorcist where we're going in to the same bedroom 6 times throughout the course of the experience, well, how do we go about doing that so that the guests aren't bored with their with their experience as they're going through those rooms? There's, it's creative problem solving as well as collaboration at its best, I think.
Now, you guys have got to work with some of the greatest horror IPs in movie history. You've collaborated with some of the directors and creators. So which IP have you got to work on that had you all really, really excited to work on? And which creator was the best to work with?
I heard Landis was an interesting one to work with.
Mike had more interactions with Landis than any of us. Okay. And he would always come back with another story, which I think is awesome. I can tell you that like it's strange working with them because depending on who it is, and I don't want to get into specifics, but depending on who it is, sometimes it's an email that gets sent off with your treatment, and then you hear back like a week later, okay, good, we got it, we don't need anything else. And at other times, they want to come to property. They want to have a sit down. You want to have a brainstorming session. You want to talk through everything. You want to have them touch and smell and feel and taste everything that you're going to be doing. And you have to kind of lead them down that pathway so that they can really understand the scope of what you're attempting to pay off. But depending on on the IP, I would have to say that anytime you have an IP like Exorcist, like Shining, like Texas, like Nightmare, like Friday, like all of the big ones that are, we've called them white whales. When you get that opportunity to work with them and dive into a movie that was one of your favorites or is still one of your favorites, it really is something that is terrifying from a creative standpoint, but at the same time, what an amazing experience to get to play within that realm.
Yeah, because you have a level of expectation going into doing an IP that you don't have with an original.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then off the back of that, is there any IP you never got to work with that you really wanted to?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure if yeah, I mean, there's a list. Yeah, obviously, yeah. There are things that we either didn't get to touch or the team has yet to do that it could be on the slate for the next 3 to 5 years. But that if they make their way to the guest experience, I will be right there with everybody else, smiling ear to ear for the team, knowing that they were finally able to pay it off.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening, I need a Last of Us house desperately.
I've heard people like that story.
Yes, I am 3 hours into The Last of Us 2, and yes, I want a Last of Us Horror Nights house.
Yeah, there are IPs that we didn't get a chance to do that we've always kind of looked at and gone, oh man, wouldn't it be awesome if we could just do this?
So and year-round Horror Nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, it's not going on this year. Why not next year?
What's not to like?
Yeah, I mean, come on. Horror always has its place.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Now, before we let you go, Patrick, because time's ticking on, we've got one last question for you. Can you please tell us your 3 favourite houses, pretty please, and your 2 favourite scare zones in your time at the event?
Oh, God. Okay. Scare zones are easy. Scare zones are actually easier.
Okay, we'll start there then.
Troop Macabre from 2007. Only because it was my first year working on the event, and that scare zone was so crazy good. And Path of the Wicked, which was in 2008.
Okay.
Bit before
if I were to pick one in the modern era, I would have to say Vanity Ball or 55.
Because
those
I would have
they were just
loved
crazy.
to have seen Vamp 55.
Yeah.
Everyone, like just
We were
watching the
obsessed with
vlogs
that.
of it, it looked phenomenal.
Yeah, Vamp 85 was awesome too. Vamp 85 took me back to my childhood, but
Brilliant.
like, yeah, Vamp 55 only because the soundtrack was so great.
And it seemed like one of those scare zones where the actors really kind of embodied
Embraced
it, like
yeah.
really did embrace it and just embodied that whole scare zone forever. Like just the interaction that we've seen with the guy with the ice cream.
The ice cream man.
Yeah, he was amazing.
There's actually a side story to that, but I can't get into it right now. It's a much too long story. We'll talk later.
We will.
Yes.
For houses, I'm always such a fan of everybody else's houses because
it doesn't have to be one that you worked on, Patrick.
Well, obviously, I like this house, and this house because I did them. Because it's such a collaborative effort. I'm okay. One of my houses, I'll take Universal Monsters from last year.
Okay.
That was just a culmination of. I mean, we had done one-off Frankenstein houses and Dracula houses and Wolfman houses. We'd done House of Horrors. We've done street zones all over the place. And to be able to pay the classic monsters off in that fashion is something that is unique and amazing to be able to play with on Universal's behalf. That was crazy good. I'm excited about the future of the classic monsters or the Universal monsters or however you want to phrase them.
Yes.
Yeah.
As Universal properties moving forward, I think that they're crazy good. And they're one of the reasons you love horror.
Yeah.
Because they're so iconic. I think because if I had to take it from a cast perspective, one of the best casts I ever had the opportunity to play with was in the very first Havoc Dogs of War. Getting men and women during the audition to say that it would be okay to shave their heads was something that was unique and we hadn't done yet.
Wow.
And there were way more takers than we thought we would have.
Okay.
And that cast was crazy. In fact, one of the Dogs of War, she got the barcode that all of them got stenciled on every night. She got it as a tattoo on her head.
Awesome. On a head. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. And you want to say something that's humbling. You're like, oh my God.
Yes.
that person did it. Also, I really like Dead Waters.
Oh, don't.
Yeah. Charles did such a magnificent job on that house. I really, really like that house. He and Nick both just absolutely slayed it. And what was beautiful about it is that the name on the ship was actually the name of Susan Moore, who was the character manager who had passed away that year before the event started. So it was a touchstone to be able to walk in to see such a beautiful representation of that boat in that space for the sake of all of our guests and know that there was a deeper meaning for the entire team.
Yeah.
Wow. That was something that was really special.
Yeah.
But then you've got things like Dead Exposure and you've got things like Scary Tales and Psychoscarapy. It's really difficult to pick a favorite because you get there are so many. But yeah, that's a brief list.
Dead Waters is one I would have loved to have experienced.
Yeah, it was crazy good.
I feel like we got to experience little bits of it in the Mardi Gras tribute store in February, I do believe. There was little bits in there I think may have come from that house we heard.
That and Graveyard Games.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we borrowed a lot from Graveyard Games too.
Can we just talk about Horror Nights for the next 3 weeks? I need to talk about it. Cool. Patrick, I know you've got to go. We could talk to you forever. There is so much more we could talk to, and I feel like we've barely covered anything. So I will love to invite you back at some point and talk about this more. It's been
just make him a
absolute
make
blast.
him a co-host. It's easy.
Are you free on Monday nights, Patrick?
You know what? Let's take this on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Cool.
Let's take this on a case-by-case basis. If you guys have a light week and you're coming up short on anybody, just call me and see if I'm available. And I'll just be like, yeah, I'm free, whatever.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that's going to wrap up the show. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Patrick, it's been a blast talking to you again.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Halloween.
Yes.
Happy Halloween.
Of course, we want to wish you all the best moving forward, Patrick, for whatever the future holds for you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to wrap up the show like we always do with another Universal Is. And I have asked Patrick, are you ready to give us your Universal Is?
Yes.
Right. So, of course, if you want to be involved, all you've got to do is drop us an email at podcast@uuopodcast.com, letting us know what you think Universal is in 3 words or less. And Patrick, it is over to you.
Universal is passion, potential, storytelling.
Awesome. See you next week, guys.
Guess that wraps things up for another unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. You guys did all right. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Pinterest, keyword UUO Podcast. Listen and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere podcasts are found. You can find our blog at uuopodcast.com. Send us your spews, which Lou gets your poo recordings, questions, or comments to podcast@uuopodcast.com. Check out our friends, the Theme Park Duo, and our awesome sponsors, Mouse and Muggle Travel Company. So, until next time, don't give up your day job. Say cheese. See you later.